What's up, y'all? It's Crypto Kenzie, man. Man, y'all already know what time it is. It's time for Crypto and Culture. Let's go.
Alright guys, my name is Vays. I don't want to spend too much time talking about myself. I do come from the traditional Wall Street environment after a master's in financial engineering down in Florida. Ended up working at Bear Stearns during the financial crisis. Was a VP at JP Morgan, a couple of other companies. I quit all that in 2015, and but I got into Bitcoin around 2013. I'm a content creator. I have several conferences that I put together on Confiscatable, Understanding Bitcoin, and a very popular YouTube channel as well. So you can just, everything is under my name, tonevays.com, Tonevays on Twitter, Tonevays YouTube channel as well. Alright, I'm going to jump right into the presentation. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of Bitcoin, where we are right now, and where it's all probably going. The background is the price chart of Bitcoin. I know I haven't updated this in a while. I did this in a very early 2019. We're definitely back to the $10,000 price. I like starting these presentations off with just to look at the white paper. You don't have to read the entire Bitcoin white paper, but this is what created everything. And almost everything you need to know is right there in the abstract. And you have to read the paper for the details. So I'm just going to read a quick part of the abstract. Digital signatures provide a part of the solution, but the main benefits are lost if a trusted third party is still required to prevent double spending. The word double spending will become important. We propose a solution to the double spending problem using a peer-to-peer network. The network timestamps transactions by hashing them into an ongoing chain of hash-based proof of work, forming a record that cannot be changed without redoing the proof of work. So the title of the paper was Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. So Satoshi created money on the internet. He actually didn't create money on the internet. He solved the double spending problem. Something computer scientists have almost given up on and said it was going to be impossible. What is the computer science double spending problem? You all deal with data all the time. Use your cell phone, you send messages, you send Word documents, you send pictures. You're sending digital data. But all the digital data that you send, there's always multiple, identical, infinite copies of that data. The text message that you send, you have a copy of that message. The picture that you send, you have a copy of that picture. The solution to the double spending problem was, how do I send the digital data and I lose possession of that data? That was the problem that he solved. The word blockchain was nowhere in Satoshi's white paper. We're going to talk a little bit later about where that came from. So that was the solution. And he realized by allowing people to now send digital data and lose possession of that data, that data itself, that's going to be the value. And he decided to give it a finite number of these data pieces, which he didn't have to do, but he did in order to incentivize the system and anticipate the price of this digital data to rise. We're going to talk about that as well. So that paper was published at the end of October of 2008. The first Bitcoin block was mined on January 3rd, 2009. For an entire year of Bitcoin's existence, it had no value. So it cost money to create Bitcoin by using your electricity and deteriorating your computer, and you're mining Bitcoins that currently didn't have any value. It started to get some value in 2010, and the price was about 10 cents. The price jumped from 10 cents to 50 cents at the very end of 2010 with the first suggested use case for Bitcoin, and that was a suggestion that WikiLeaks should accept it for donations. This was mentioned in our very first presentation today, where one of the Bitcoin developers at the time, Amir Taki, suggested that WikiLeaks start using Bitcoin because Visa, MasterCard, and PayPal had cut off WikiLeaks from accepting donations. And this first proposed use case was basically an example of Bitcoin's censorship-resistant value transfer. the fact that it's uncensorable. You can send something of value to anyone at any time, and there's nothing that any government can do to stop it. WikiLeaks did not initially start using it back in 2010, and Satoshi came out and said, hey, this is not a good idea, it's going to give it too much attention, it's so new, technologically not ready. So they listened. But the first actual use of this, as Lynn mentioned, was Silk Road. Silk Road launched in February of 2011, a few months after the suggested use case, and that created the first commercial use of the use case of being censorship-resistant value transfer. And people were using Bitcoin to purchase things on Silk Road, and Lynn showed the graphic of what kind of things were being purchased. And the price of Bitcoin really started to rise, and it went all the way to $30. Now, in the summer of 2011. Now, what really caused it to spike all the way up was Senator Chuck Schumer, who went on TV, and in about a minute to a minute and a half, he managed to educate the world on how to use Tor, the anonymous browser, how to buy your substances from Silk Road, and how to use Bitcoin to do it. It was an amazing feat that I can't achieve in about 2 minutes. So that really almost helped promote Bitcoin and the use of Silk Road. When a senator goes on TV and with a laptop, you can see Silk Road right there on his laptop, basically giving you a tutorial on how to use Silk Road. Our Senator Chuck Schumer from New York. I was just, I wish I had the video. I think that I couldn't find it anymore. I was just saying how I was mimicking what you said about Silk Road being the first use case for censorship-resistant value transfer. So that's when I was hearing about Bitcoin. I actually heard about it in early 2011 because of the WikiLeaks suggestion. Silk Road was something that never came across my radar, even though I worked on Wall Street. The movie Wolf of Wall Street is really an anomaly. That's not what normally goes on there. So the Silk Road use case never resonated with me that much. The WikiLeaks did. But it wasn't enough for me to jump into Bitcoin. That took place in 2013. So in the first quarter of 2013, around April, I realized the most important use of Bitcoin, and that is the use case of Bitcoin being unconfiscatable. This occurred in Europe, in the country of Cyprus, where the government of Cyprus shut down the banks, and if you had more than 100,000 euros, they confiscated 50% of that money. So if you had 200,000 euros in the Bank of Cyprus, 50,000 of that was confiscated by the Cyprus government and the European government. And that use case really resonated with me because it showed me that even in a developed first world nation, the government can just come and take your money. And Bitcoin is the only thing of value that you can own that is unconfiscatable by someone with a bigger gun. Because it doesn't have a physical form. And it's decentralized. And it's like your real estate can be taken away, everything can be taken away. But now your Bitcoin, if you properly protect it, and we'll get to that in a second as well. So this is the use case that basically got me searching around the web, how do I buy Bitcoin? And that took place in 2013. Now, the use case of unconfiscatable, and that word did not exist in a dictionary. That's how I was able to get the .com recently, and my conference is called Unconfiscatable. It takes place in Vegas because of that. And I'm really trying to make sure that this resonates with people because this is the first time in human history that you can own something of value that is unconfiscatable. And here's another reason why it's important. In 2014, confiscations by law enforcement in the form of civil asset forfeiture have stolen more money from people than burglars did in 2014. So the use case of owning something that is unconfiscatable is really, really important. Now, of course, your Bitcoin is only unconfiscatable if you properly protect it, which is very, very challenging. Even in the case of Silk Road, when it got shut down, I believe October 1st of 2013, the government was able to seize 144,000 Bitcoin. I'm actually happy that they sold it at the end of the bear market of 2014 and collected 48 million Bitcoin for their $48 million, because if they would have waited 3 years, they could have collected 2.4 billion and had way more money to shut down other similar websites like Silk Road. Yeah, so the value of Bitcoin went up a lot, but they were able to confiscate that Bitcoin because unfortunately it wasn't properly protected, so it became confiscatable by the government. The protecting Bitcoin is actually very, very hard. When the Bitcoin bubble, the first bubble popped, wasn't the first, but not the current one, but the one before, in 2013, Mt. Gox was basically found to have lost an enormous amount of Bitcoin. Now, I don't have time to get into the story of Mt. Gox, but I think Mark Karpeles is also sitting in prison somewhat unjustly. Mark Karpeles, who bought Mt. Gox, didn't realize he bought it with 80,000 missing Bitcoin from Jeff McCaleb. He questioned him about it after he already bought it, and he got some very interesting replies like, hey, maybe you should just mine it, or hey, use a bot. And then Mt. Gox gets hacked soon after Mark Karpeles buys it. Speculation that it was Jeff McCaleb's old computer that did it, and like another 200,000 Bitcoin was stolen. So there's lots of that went on there. So again, your Bitcoin is only unconfiscatable if properly protected. Both of those use cases were on full display at the end of the bear market in 2015 with the Greek banking shutdown. I believe this was a very critical use case for Bitcoin, and because the European government basically shut down the Greek banks, and people were told it doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank, you can only withdraw 60 euros a day. Imagine if the US government shut down all the banks and told you you can only withdraw $60 a day from an ATM machine. And that went on for about 2 weeks, and then they decided, hey, as of Monday, you can withdraw 420 euros for the entire week. So when they announced that, what happens on Monday morning? Well, that's what you get. Everyone runs to the ATM machine that Monday to withdraw their full allowance. So this is an example of how your money is both confiscatable and not censorship resistant because it's in the bank. And this picture of Greece from 2015 is not all that different than that picture in the upper right-hand corner. That's New York City in 1907, one of the biggest financial crashes the world, the American markets had seen. It directly led to the creation of a Federal Reserve to try and prevent those crashes. That didn't really work out in 1929, but we'll skip 29 and we can go, the middle pictures are Germany. In 1923, with their hyperinflation, you see people burning money for heat because it was a better use case than the money. This is US in 1934 after the gold confiscation, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And again, people burning banknotes because they were no longer properly backed. And again, a modern picture with color in Zimbabwe. This is their hyperinflation in 2007. So what do all these pictures, well, the pictures are pretty much the same. The only difference is the photography and the color. And we'll get back to that in a minute as well. Since I mentioned the gold confiscation, let's talk about that for a minute, because this brings the third most critical property of Bitcoin into display. In 1933, FDR announced that the dollar will no longer be fully backed by gold, and gold is being confiscated. Now, it was very, very simple for him to do that because the majority of the gold was sitting at the banks. The government actually never went door to door to collect people's gold. People were just told that you get a $10,000 fine, which in 1933 was actually quite a bit of money. Or 10 years in prison if you don't turn in your gold. But if you didn't turn in your gold, nothing really happened to you. People trusted the government way more back then, so a lot of people actually turned it in. But the majority of the gold was basically already sitting at the banks, and it was just moved to the Federal Reserve. And this brings us to the third property of Bitcoin, which is hard money. Anybody here read the book, The Bitcoin Standard? If I say, I got a couple of hands to go up. It's actually an amazing book. I strongly recommend it. It's called The Bitcoin Standard. The first 10 chapters talk about the history of money, and the last 3 chapters talk about what Bitcoin will likely do going into the future in regards to money. Just going to read a couple of passages from the book real quick. If people choose a hard money with a high stock-to-flow ratio, stock-to-flow ratio means new money into existence is small compared to the money in circulation. As a store of value, the purchasing of it to store it would increase demand for it, causing a rise in its price, which would incentivize its producers to make more of it. But because the flow is small compared to the existing supply, even a large increase in new production is unlikely to depress the price significantly. Hard money, by taking the question of supply out of the hands of governments and economists, would force everyone to be productive to society instead of seeking to get rich through the fool's errand of monetary manipulation. International economic summits are convened where world leaders try to negotiate each other's acceptable currency devaluation, making the value of currency an issue of geopolitical importance. For every other money, as its value rises, those who can produce it will start to produce more of it, whether it's rhinestones, seashells, silver, gold, copper, or government money. Everyone will have an incentive to produce more. Bitcoin is the hardest money ever invented. Growth in its value cannot possibly increase its supply. It can only make the network more secure and immune to attack. And it makes Bitcoin fundamentally different from every other money. Satoshi didn't have to create Bitcoin with a finite supply, but he saw that by doing that, it would incentivize people to save Bitcoin and value it. And that would cause its value to go up. And by causing its value to go up, more and more people would be interested in using it in the future, and it would replace gold as money for the digital age. Because let's face it, you can't send gold on the internet. It's very hard. And sending gold around requires central authorities. So that needed to be replaced. So these are the 3 properties that allow Bitcoin to compete today in the world financial system. The fact that it's unconfiscatable, with examples of Cyprus and civil asset forfeiture. The fact that it's uncensorable, again, the Greeks, WikiLeaks, Silk Road case. And the fact that it's uninflatable. It's hard money. So no matter how much you try, you're not going to create more than 21 million Bitcoin, and 85% of that is already in circulation, with the rest being very, very difficult to mine. Where is Bitcoin still struggling a little bit, but greatly improving? Well, scalability. Those of you who have been around the space for a while know about the scaling debates, and scalability of Bitcoin has been a bit of a struggle, but it's so much better now. With the Lightning Network, the SegWit changes, Schnorr, which is another technological upgrade, all of that's going to make Bitcoin a lot more scalable. You should be able to send your very, very small payments very cheaply, and this is pretty much ready now. Still a little bit hard to use for the average person, but it's going to get a lot better very quickly. Fungibility and privacy. That's another aspect that Bitcoin is still struggling a little bit. One of the biggest challenges a person has is, securing their Bitcoin. You can be hacked, it can be stolen, there's nothing you can do about it. Fungibility is very important. I was listening to Andreas Antonopoulos, I'm sure a lot of you know who he is, and he was talking about fungibility and how important it is even for the government currency. He said at one point the US government wanted, within the drug war, they wanted to implement a system where a store that accepts bills would have a little machine that would figure out how half those paper bills touched drugs. Is there a cocaine residue on the bills? And when they did the analysis, they realized that pretty much every bill had it. And so by giving that machine and you put a metric, say, hey, if the bill has more than X amount of particles of cocaine, that you can't use that bill. And now US $100 bills get basically value well, this $100 bill is worth $110 because it's clean, and this $100 bill is worth $80 because it's not clean, and that basically destroys your own financial system. So even the government knows that fungibility is important. Every $100 bill is the same as every other $100 bill. Bitcoin needs to be the same. Every Bitcoin needs to, every Satoshi, every fraction of a Bitcoin needs to be the same as every other. And the functionality for that is getting much better. Bulletproof, Stumblebit, Schnorr, and lots of other technological innovation. Should have probably been skip a couple slides there, but there's a very important quote by Satoshi that says, the nature of Bitcoin is such that once version 0.1 was released, the core design was set in stone for the rest of its lifetime. That refers to the fact that you can't create another Bitcoin, and this was the big debates and the scaling debates and the forks of Bitcoin and all these altcoins. Their technology is almost irrelevant because what gives Bitcoin value is not how quickly it adopts the technology. What gives Bitcoin value is confidence of the people in its value. The most important thing to money is confidence. The US dollar is the most confident currency around the world. You can bring your dollars anywhere around the world and people will take it. Try to spend even euros in the US. It's hard. Try to spend Indian currency anywhere outside of India. No one's going to accept it, right? But I can bring my dollars into India and they'll happily take it. That's confidence. That's global confidence. And that's what makes your currency the world reserve currency. The fact that we may not like the way the government prints our money, but it's still the most responsible government and the most transparent government for the printing of that money. And that's why the world has confidence in the US dollar. It's the same thing for Bitcoin. People have confidence in Bitcoin, and the fact that Bitcoin is, the fact that it's very difficult to make technological changes in Bitcoin is what gives people confidence that those three properties that I mentioned aren't going anywhere. If Bitcoin is easy to change, then all three of those properties are in danger. The fact that it's unprintable, the fact that it's censorship resistant, and the fact that it's unconfiscatable. So it's actually a good thing. Same from the book. The immutability is not a feature of the Bitcoin software, which is trivial to change for anyone with coding skills, but rather is grounded in the economics of the currency and network and stems from the difficulty of getting every member of the network to adopt the same change to the software. So basically, in order to change something in Bitcoin, you basically need everybody to agree, especially if it's something controversial. And if it's something controversial, everyone is not going to agree. That's what makes it controversial. So when it comes to quantum computers, stealing your private keys, I completely disagree. If that was a fear, a Bitcoin would not be worth $10,000. And if that ever becomes a fear, and quantum computers can destroy Bitcoin, that would be a non-debatable issue. And in that case, there would be consensus to change the code. But I don't see that coming anytime soon, maybe 10 to 20 years from now. Wrote an article a long time ago about the use cases of Bitcoin. I'm not going to read them all. By the way, these slides are public. I'm using the software called Prezi, P-R-E-Z-I. So all you got to do is Google Prezi and my name, Tom Vays, and you'll find these slides publicly available. So this is an example of just the scalability improvements and privacy improvements. So where does Bitcoin still struggle? Bitcoin still struggles with volatility. Obviously, the price of a Bitcoin can fall 10% relatively quickly. Same thing, it can rise. It's definitely the most volatile asset there is. But as there's more value, as one Bitcoin becomes more and more valuable, that volatility is going to drop. If you want to buy a car with Bitcoin right now, it's challenging. Day to day, the price of that car is going to be different for you in Bitcoin. If you want to buy a cup of coffee today, Bitcoin dropping from $10,000 in price to $9,000 in price is not going to affect your $5 cup of coffee. So as the value of one Bitcoin rises, larger and larger transactions become less and less volatile. Volatility of Bitcoin has been coming down. That's the line in red. The one in blue is the euro versus the US dollar exchange rate, which, by the way, has an unreasonable spread. If you ever been to Europe, you walk into the airport, the spread to convert your dollars to euros at the airport is at 30 to 40%. It's insane. It's like one of the most liquid pairs there is, and the monopoly keeps it at a spread that's unreasonable, which is crazy. So here's a giant list of hyperinflations in the 20th century. It is vast. And this book was written in 2008 after the Zimbabwe devaluation. So everything at the bottom of that, everything in that last section in blue, you guys can see the colors, those are all the hyperinflation cases in the last decade. I had to find those myself. And hyperinflation is defined by a 50% devaluation of your currency in a short period of time. I've actually added Argentina to this again. It just happened recently. And yeah, so this is still going on. So even though Bitcoin is volatile, it seems to have been rising in 10 years, not down. The specific case of Venezuela, the black is the government official rate, and the blue is the black market. So you can see how the black market kind of had it right the whole time, and then the government eventually admitted. This is Zimbabwe part 2. This is 2017 Zimbabwe, where their new currency hit hyperinflation and doesn't stop. Most hyperinflation events are political events. They're not currency events. No matter how much US prints, it's not going to cause hyperinflation because US dollars are absorbed around the world due to confidence. But when the people lose confidence in your currency, it's pretty much over. First world countries have insane shocks. The Brexit basically sent the pound losing 10% basically in 5 minutes. When the Swiss peg broke, the Swiss versus the euro rate changed 30% in 1 day. Even Bitcoin doesn't do that. So even first world countries have these insane shocks. And of course, coin security. So coin security and price volatility are still a problem. Price volatility will eliminate itself over time. Coin security, that's going to be rough. Just Google, hacks, and you lose your coins all the time. So I'm going to finish up on what will take Bitcoin to the next level real quick. I'm just going to take less than 5 minutes. And I think there are economic shocks that can really send Bitcoin higher. One of them is I believe that the European currency of all the nations is kind of flawed. And I do think it's going to break up into its components eventually. And Greece almost left. And Britain already left, but they weren't on the euro. But sooner or later, one domino will fall and they all will. So I do believe that, I'm not going to get into the reasons why, but I do believe a breakup of the European common currency is huge for Bitcoin adoption and appreciation. The continued war on cash is really, really bad. Governments want to eliminate currencies for multiple reasons. One of them is all those pictures of people running to the banks, having a bank run. Can't have that if there's no physical dollars. There's nothing to withdraw. There's no ATMs. They don't exist. Governments can set any negative interest rates they like. They can charge you for holding your money. And of course, they all think we're tax evaders. This is why they haven't given us a utopia. In India, it's actually more true. 30 to 44% of Indian GDP is lost due to the cash economy, probably why they tried to cancel the currency. A good article from Harvard Business Review on that. In France, they KYC, they need to know who you are for any purchases over 1,000 euros by a French citizen. If you're a foreigner, you have an 8,000 euro limit. I love this law from Louisiana. It's hard for me to find it on the books again. A second-hand dealer shall not enter into any cash transactions and payments for the purchase of junk or used or secondary property. So if you're in Louisiana and you want to sell your bicycle for $20 in cash, you're technically breaking the law. So the war on cash is bad, and in Germany they want to eliminate the fine arts market. If you have a rare painting or a rare coin, anything of collector value over 100 euros, they want to know who you are, they want your name, probably for tax purposes. So again, all these use cases help the Bitcoin a lot. That's it for me. I do believe in Bitcoin. I didn't really get into proof of work or where blockchain came from. There is a longer version of this presentation that I did at the on-conference time because it's, again, I don't believe in the blockchain use case for all these things. The internet is just as good. A blockchain doesn't solve most of your problems, but it has solved the problem of holding on to something of value with those three properties. Thank you very much, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. And just look me up. I have a very popular YouTube channel under Vays. Thank you.